Welcome everyone to the Thursday, December 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Planning Commission. As usual, in accordance with Executive Order N29-20, the Planning Commission meeting will be held telephonically. You can join us by going to the county website and join us by computer or by phone. I suggest you go there if you have any questions. It's spelled out. With that, I will call the meeting to order and ask you to join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd ask Laura to do a roll call, please. Here.
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 Was that me?
Yes.
Okay. I can't hear her.
Can't either. I'm here.
Yeah, I'm also finding it very muffled, almost impossible to hear.
So
I can't hear anything,
O'Neill,
but I'm here.
Brian Mitchell,
Present.
and Melanie McCaver.
I think you said me. I'm here.
I did.
Okay. I can't hear very well either.
They're saying you're muffled. I don't know. Go ahead and take them now.
I actually could hear it better the last couple of names.
We do not have any modifications to the agenda. We do have supplementals for item number E4, the Emerald Kid. We have two different supplementals for item G1, Lost Boys Farm. And we have a supplemental for item G2, for the Samoa Peninsula wastewater project.
Thank you. So at this time, I will open it up for public comment. This is the time for anybody to speak.
Alan, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize I hit the mute. Thank you, Mike. So I will open it up to public comment. This is the time when the public can speak on any item that is not on the agenda tonight. So I will get over to attendees. Looks like we have a couple hands up. And the first one would be Larry Oetker. Go ahead, Larry.
Hi, my name is Larry Oetker. I'm the Executive Director of the Humboldt Bay Harbor District. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update and just say that we're working towards revitalizing the Samoa Peninsula. And as you may have saw last week, we signed a deal with new Trans-Pacific fiber optic cable lease that's going to land at the former pulp mill property, the Nordic Aqua Farms property, the project, the 600,000 square foot recirculating aquaculture project. They submitted their applications with CEQA documents to the planning department last week, I believe. We're currently working on a master plan for a brand new multi-purpose dock, coordinating with the other property owners on the Samoa Peninsula, Danco, Green Diamond, the Snyder properties to prepare for the offshore wind energy. And we've already started to do the eelgrass surveys and other technical reports on those. And so we just wanted to give you just a quick update of some of the projects that we're working on. And we really appreciate the support of your staff. We think they're doing a great job. And we'd love to talk to you sometime about what we could do to completely revitalize the Port of Humboldt Bay and support the commercial fishermen and also create living wage jobs for the 21st century. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry. The next caller is, one just dropped out. So it's public 7454. I recognize that. Go ahead, Kent.
Hey, good evening. I'm glad Larry called in because just so you know, you got about a 7-second lag tonight and between your audio and your visual on the TV. And those of us on phones, sometimes if a phone call comes over the top of us, we cannot call out and have to enter back in. And I would appreciate your indulgence should we enter a little bit late because of that and still make comments, because this is what we're dealing with. So I appreciate my opportunity to speak here. I think that that there's a definition you should understand, and it's a definition for cartel. An association of manufacturer suppliers with the purpose of manufacturing prices at a high level and restricting competitions. Quote, the Colombian drug cartel. Cartel, according to Wikipedia, is a group of independent market participants who collude with each other in order to improve their profits and dominate the market. Cartels are usually associations the same sphere of influence, and that's an alliance of rivals. Most jurisdictions consider it anti-competitive behavior. So now that we're in what I refer to as the Humboldt County Green Crack Cartel, and I have a problem with this because it's not competitive. We've had certain people, supervisors and people in power who've got permits for themselves, got an unfair market advantage, and now they have used this process to block and drag out people for whatever it is, 3 or 4 years. So they had no competition. And this is not just, Rex Bone the other day said he had a problem with me referring to it as a Rex Bone cartel. It clearly fits the definition. So I wanted to give you a little crystal ball as far as the planning, and those of you who will or will not be here on this planning commission in the near future. Let's see. Virginia will be gone within 2 years and 1 month. And of course, Miss Pellegrini, I've been very disappointed, but apparently you may only be here for another meeting or two. It's amazing how these things transpire, and some of you large people will also probably be moving on your way. I wanted to bring forward one very important thing. I spoke today repeatedly during John Ford's whatever it is where we had our little hearing today, and I really would like you folks to make a motion prior to Planning Commissioner Brian Mitchell making a motion regarding the elimination of generators for 5 years, 2 years. Everybody that I believe was requested to or suggested to during this other process for 4 or 5 permits were more than willing to do it either instantly or in less than 2 years. These people want to be responsible. I see no reason to drag this out. And I really have an angst because you haven't gone forward and made, maybe I was in Mexico, but made recommendations regarding your generators. And these should be the policies you need to do, along with minimal use of water. I really appreciate the people who do drip irrigation and use way less water. So I just wanted to bring those things to your attention today. And I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Kent. Next caller is public 3053. You have to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Tom Small here. I just want to confirm you can hear me.
Yes, clear.
So I want to give some insight about the generator aspect. I myself years into trying to bring PG&E into my site. It's a 1/4 mile away with a right of way, all those kind of things. We just finally had, after pandemic and fires and all that stuff, I finally just had PG&E out walking my site last Friday. It's going to be a couple $100,000 out of pocket just to bring power in. So some of us may not be forced to get PG&E, but we're deciding to do it. But it's time. So I think your plan that you guys are trying to go towards would be more proper, as long as people are showing that towards it, maybe just would like to bring that insight to you. And then on another aspect originally going to talk about is some comments I've heard by commissioners. I have a really, really tough job. And I have to say that over the last 3 months of traveling out, I've heard a few commissioners say about, the cannabis industry doing some negative things here and there in the cannabis industry. And I've been in a bubble, I guess, because I've seen a lot of good things. Recently seen, it's not so great. There's some people out there, maybe not rules to the proper, and maybe I just didn't see that before, and I'm seeing it now. And I appreciate the hard work that this commission's doing, trying to put the right mitigations to projects to bring them environmentally friendly. And I thank you all. It's a tough project. I know I follow and comment, but you're a couple hours into a project, and then sometimes the supervisors to appeal whatever you guys decided, and there's plus staff. So it's a tough project or a tough job. Keep at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Anybody else that would like to speak during public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will come back to the agenda. And we will now do the section E, the consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda is review and approval of the October 15th, 2020 action summary. Is there anybody who I have a question for the director. We can approve this along with everything else on the consent. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask if there's anybody who wants this item pulled from the consent agenda. Seeing none, that will stay on. The second item on the consent agenda is the Canyon Farms LLC conditional use permit in the Phillipsville area. Are there any panelists or attendees which would like this? Yes, Director.
I do not want to pull this, but there is a supplemental for this, so I want to make sure everybody has seen.
Okay. If everybody heard that, there's a supplemental that goes along with this item. Anybody that cares to have this pulled? Seeing none, I will leave this on consent. The third item is IXXCO Incorporated Conditional Use Permit Modification at 39057 State Highway 299 Willow Creek area. Is there anybody who cares to have this item pulled? I see one hand up, so we will pull this item. We'll move on to the next one. The Emerald Kid Incorporated Conditional Use Permit Modification at 50 Stagecoach Lane and 100 Stagecoach Lane in the Willow Creek area. Anybody who wishes to have this pulled? I see a hand up, so we will pull this item. Number 5 is Yeti Enterprises LLC Conditional Use Permit it's at 2214 McClenag Avenue in the McClenag area. Anybody who wishes to have this item pulled? Seeing none, that will stay on the consent agenda. So with that, I would be asking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, including items number 1, number 2, number 5, and that would be it. So items number 1, 2, and 5. And a motion to approve those.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1, 2, and 5.
Favor? Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Noah. All right, so with that, we will go to the first item that was pulled from, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I'm kind of skipping ahead a little fast there. Sorry about that. So I will call for a roll call vote. Donna?
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Ronnie Pellegrini,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Ryan Mitchell,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. So now we will move on to the first pulled item, which is item number 3, the IXXCO Incorporated Conditional Use Permit Modification in the Willow Creek area. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes, I just tried to share my screen and it says that may be disabled by the host.
Try again, they're saying.
It's available now. I appreciate that. All right. Hello and good evening, commissioners, members of the viewing and listening public. My name is Devin Sutton. I'm the planner presenting for the department. For your consideration this evening is the modification of an approved project to add off-site processing. The approved project allows for non-volatile manufacturing and distribution of commercial cannabis. The project is located in downtown Willow Creek. It's located within the Willow Creek Community Planning Area on State Highway 299, and it's just east of the intersection of State Highway 96. Just to tune you into where it's at, it's right in the center of town, right
Devin?
below the
If you intended to share, you're not sharing right now.
Okay, let me fix that then. So screen 2. How about now? Is that everything you guys see in this
Yes,
thing? I apologize.
thank you.
Okay. So we'll advance just a little bit to the directional map. So it's project's located in downtown Willow Creek. It's on State Highway 299, just east of the intersection of Highway 96, and it's right below the words Willow Creek, right in the center of town there. So the proposed activity takes place on a parcel of just under 0.2 of an acre, zoned community commercial, and with a general plan designation of mixed use. So application materials received August 27th of this year describe off-site processing to occur in an existing structure with no changes proposed to the exterior of the building. Activities will include trimming, grading, sorting, drying, curing, and packaging of cannabis materials. Employees used for processing activities will carpool and utilize one on-site parking space. And the project has been conditioned to require a parking study to determine the availability of parking on Highway 299 if the operation increases the number of employees, of which 5 were previously approved. So this project requires a use permit because it's located within the Willow Creek Community Planning Area. And the addition of this commercial activity will not change the parking or the hours of operation. The proposed activity does not fundamentally alter the project. It will allow locally permitted cultivators in the greater Willow Creek area an outlet to trim, package, and ultimately distribute locally produced cannabis product, which has been identified as a pinch point for permitted cultivators. So we did receive 2 sets of comments from members of the public. One letter from a couple that are local business owners and residents, and another from the owner of the Bigfoot Motel. Their concerns collectively included the location of the operation in Willow Creek, the disposition of the building, loss of revenue, odors, and a general decline in property value. Both parties submitted very similar public comments to the manufacturing and distribution decision at Planning Commission in March of 2019. The project as originally approved is conditioned to address odors through a ventilation system approved by a mechanical engineer, which was done prior to them initiating operations. There's also a provision that it also includes a condition to provide telephone number of the on-site operator in event of issues arising from the project. The project had no documented complaints after 18 months of operation. However, we did receive public comment as a result of project noticing. So I was able to speak with the applicant and the motel owner, and we discussed the recent odor comment. We relayed to the motel owner the applicant's telephone contact, and the applicant stated they have every intention of addressing community concerns immediately. So follow-up with the motel manager indicated there have been no adverse odors emanating from the operation. And additionally, I conducted an inspection on October 21st of this year and found the operation to be in compliance with the terms and conditions of the approved use permit. So it is important to note that this is an existing operation that is simply being reconfigured to include an additional use of offsite processing. So we ask that you find the project exempt from CEQA section 15301 pertaining to existing facilities. Make the finding the project is consistent with the provision of county code applied to offsite processing, and adopt the resolution approving the proposed project. So I appreciate your time, and I'm available to take any questions anybody might have.
Any questions of staff from the commission?
Hey, Devin, go ahead and stop sharing.
Yes, sir.
So is there any questions for staff from the commission? I'm not seeing any. So with that, I will open this up for public comment. And it looks like we have at least one hand up. Go ahead, Kent.
Kent Sawowski, I think I've been unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So it was just pointed out that if there's the applicant states that 4 individuals are required for operation with 6 required seasonally, I thought I just heard them say that the original permit was for 5 people and that they were required to have a traffic study if that was more than that. So I'm guessing as a condition you do have a traffic study. If I recall the original vote, there were 2 people that got this thing, and it was your chair, and well, your chair at the time, and Mr. Morrison, your current chair, that this particular kind of project does not belong in the middle of this zone. You drive by there, and I've driven by the other one. I don't know if the other one's even operating, but I drive by there on a frequent basis, and it has that boarded up appearance. They don't have retail, is my understanding. Maybe their hours were 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I won't dispute that. But, you know, this was wrong before. It's wrong now. People who understand planning and designations and zoning get it. I mean, you have the same thing. I think there's a major litigation in Garberville. I haven't heard resolution of that one. Somebody should have been suing on this one, in my opinion, and suing on the other one on the other side of the street also. So for some of you who don't understand, who have not been educated by certified planners and other people, this was not a proper use, and it's no more of a proper use now. So I guess the biggest thing here is I'm asking whether it has been conditioned to have the traffic study, since they're saying that 6 people are required seasonally. That's about the only monkey wrench I can throw at this terrible project. That's my opinion. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Any other public that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public comment. And would you like to address that?
Yeah. Mr. Sutton, could you respond to the question about the number of employees, please?
Absolutely, sir. So the project will have 5 employees and no more than 5 employees. If the applicant proposes to increase the number of employees prior to that activity being authorized, they would be required to conduct a parking feasibility survey. And at that point, we can assess the possibility of increasing the number of employees.
Thank you.
Can you address the comments about the local planning? I know when I looked at doing projects in Eureka, they're very specific about what types of business you can put in a commercial area. Is there any limits or any guidance that's been adopted for this area, for their downtown?
Yeah, I can address that. So the allowance for this activity to occur at this location comes out of both the CMMLUO and the CCLUO. It's not listed within the specific zones. This is a C2 zone that typically is more of a retail kind of use. At the time that this was approved, as a member of the public mentioned, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not this activity should be allowed at this particular location. I think the thing that was stated over and over again and probably finally sunk home was when the property owner got up and said that they had been looking to have other tenants move into this building, but there had been no takers for this building. And so it is constantly a discussion point about whether or not support facilities should be in a C2 zone, but the zoning ordinance does allow it. It does not establish restrictions as to the number or to separation between the uses or activities.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director or for Mr. Sutton?
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian.
Yes.
I just wanted to make an ex parte disclosure that I have toured this particular site after our last hearing. There were a number of claims that it was blighted and would create blight. And I just wanted to report that I toured it and I found it. I disagree with the characterizations that this is a blighted property or something that brings down the aesthetic of the particular neighborhood.
A relatively new building that was replaced, I think, 3 or 4 years ago from a fire. So, any other questions? Anybody care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to move that we find the project exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines, make all the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit modifications based on evidence in the staff report and adopt the resolution approving the IXXCO incorporated conditional use permit modification subject to the recommended conditions.
I'll second.
We have a motion. Commissioner Mitchell and a second from Commissioner McCaver. Any discussion? Seeing none, I would ask Laura for a roll call vote.
Alan Bongio,
No.
Ronnie Pellegrini,
Yes.
Noah Leve,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
No.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
and Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries with a 5-2 vote. Thank you. The next item that was pulled is the Emerald Kid Incorporated conditional use permit modification on 50 Stagecoach Lane and 100 Stagecoach Lane in the Willow Creek area. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening. I'm Stevie Luther. I'm the assigned planner for the Emerald Kid, and I will share a brief staff report. This is an application to modify approved conditional use permits for cultivation. The project was approved for 5,000 square feet of mixed light cultivation on one parcel and 5,000 square feet of mixed light on the other. And in addition, there was 1,600 square feet of outdoor cultivation, or I'm sorry, indoor cultivation. This project is located in the Willow Creek area as well. It is off Brannon Mountain Road, and the site is accessed by Stagecoach Lane, a private drive that serves 5 parcels. The application is seeking to add non-volatile manufacturing with solventless manufacturing processes, as well as distribution that would serve products and cultivation that is grown on the parcel, on the premises only. The project is seeking to add a 2,142 square foot nursery greenhouse. There would be up to 15 employees necessary at peak seasonal activity. The energy source for the operation is grid power, and the applicant does purchase carbon credits from a reputable source to make up the remainder of renewable energy. The site is also seeking permission to operate as a tour site. It is equipped with ADA facilities and has adequate parking, as well as adequate access, and is not currently planning to operate for at least several years. However, wanted to include this as part of the overall project for future business expansion. Public comments were received regarding with issues around the access on Stagecoach Lane. It is a 20-foot wide access road and is adequate for the proposed commercial use. Comment was also received about setbacks to sensitive receptors. This project site does meet all the necessary setbacks, and there are no schools or churches within 600 feet. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also on the call. Thank you.
Any questions from the commissioners of staff? Mr. Newman.
Just one question on that last picture with the gate there. I saw a B&B or a porta potty there. What was that about?
I'm not sure the date of that photo. However, porta potties are often used as temporary rooms for staff. As I mentioned, the site does have a multi-use permitted building where processing occurs, and that is developed with an ADA restroom that would serve the needs of employees as well as any members of the public.
And that bathroom has not been completed yet, is that correct?
That building is permitted and is there. Perhaps the applicant can speak to the status of, it is a complete restroom.
No question.
That is at the entrance, right, of the property? The
Yes,
porta-potty?
that photo was looking out towards the Stagecoach Lane from the entrance to.
Okay, so on their property, right at the entrance coming in. Okay. Is there a time that is going to be gone?
I do not have a time frame for the removal of that portable restroom.
We have the applicant on with their hand up, so we can ask that question of him when we let him speak in a second. I saw Peggy had her hand up for if you have a question for staff, and then we'll ask the applicant. This is
Yeah, I have a question about this, kind of sliding in the tourism and whether or not that's covered by the CEQA that was already done countywide. And there's really not too much information in here on what that entails. Are we talking about gift shops? Are we talking about buses coming in? How many people are going to be showing up? There's really not enough information to be able to just throw it in without, I think there's no feasibility study, anything that you can look at to see what we're really talking about and what the impacts would be. So I kind of have a question about that, whether or not tourism just falls under the CEQA that was done overall for the county.
I can take a stab at that, and then the director can add anything. There is in the CCLUO performance standards for public accommodations, which identifies the site characteristics that would be necessary in order to host members of the public. And so if those performance standards are met with a special permit, a site can be permitted to host public tours.
And if you don't know what we're talking about when you say public tours, how do you know that it's going to accommodate those? I mean, depending on the number of people that are coming up there, whether it's tour buses, the weight of the buses on the road, and all that, you really don't know if you don't have a good description of what the public tourism entails.
And the description that we did land on is just the maximum number of tour slots that could occur in a week. And so I did look at the number of vehicles that could be on site. And it is difficult to really know what the business plan would look like for a tourist operation, because there is not a lot of cannabis tourism in the county at this point.
And you haven't really come up with what would be required to be submitted for a tourism. I'm not opposed to tourism. I think it could be very positive. It's just that I don't know what it is or what's being proposed here. Just sounds like, oh, I want to throw this in, but I don't really have much information to give you at this time. I think tourism is perfectly acceptable. I've been to farms, not cannabis farms, other types of farms for tourism. And I think it's a real asset in the county. I was just curious if we had any guidelines or requirements on submittal.
The one other thing I might add is a condition does state that the permit does not authorize the sale of cannabis products on site. So that specifically would not be a part of the public tourist.
I just remember not too long ago, we permitted weddings, remember, in a barn? And it was a whole big deal on, how many people, what time of day they could have people come to the wedding, and, and now it's like we don't care. So that's what I'm getting at, is I'm not opposed to it. I just feel like there should be some general information, a little bit more information.
If I could, through the chair, Commissioner O'Neill, I'm looking at the operations plan where they are proposing a maximum of 5 daily tours during the hours of 9 to 6 p.m., 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., up to 5 days a week. And they are anticipating that they could have up to 12 vehicles that would be utilized for the public tours.
So does that then get included in their permit, so that if all of a sudden, they become very popular and, lots of people want to show up, they have to amend their permit? Or does it just mean once you get a permit, you got the permit?
Yeah, absolutely. They would need to amend it if they were to do anything that is more than what was proposed in this operations plan, if the Planning Commission chooses to approve this.
Okay.
If I could add to that a little bit, I think one of the important things to understand about what's submitted with these applications in terms of the site plan and an operations plan, those are what the commission would be approving. So the language in those are the limitations that are imposed. So when they identify that they're only going to have 5 trips a day during certain hours, that's just like as if there was a condition on the permit. We write conditions to modify that if we think that those are too lax or don't adequately address the specific concerns associated with the site. So the operations plan will be limiting in terms of what they can do.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I'd like to open up public comment, and I'd like to let Lucas Sanders, the applicant, speak, and maybe he could answer some of the questions that came up. Go ahead.
Hello,
Lucas.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I just want to say I appreciate you guys taking the time to go over my project today. I'll address the first couple things that were just brought up, and then maybe we can circle back to me after I hear the opposing comments. So the porta potty there is gone. It was there for the construction crew, which is not my personal. They're there just for construction. The bathroom is done, and there is no porta potty, and there won't be any more porta potties. And then as far as tourism goes, that was brought to my attention for public access probably about 2 months ago by the planning, by Stevie and Devin and everyone in there. And that wasn't originally part of my plan, but if you read my operations plan, I state that I would, if the county chooses to, I would take part in a farmer run or county/community plan. So it's something that it wasn't originally brought. A public access was not originally something I wanted to do, but I believe my site's really nice and beautiful and small. It was brought to my attention, I believe, for those reasons, and I would just like to point that out to answer those questions quick. I think that was all the direct questions that weren't exactly answered by Stevie.
Thank you, Lucas. So we have a couple other public that would like to speak. The first one would be 7454. Go ahead, Ken.
Ken Sawatsky again. How are the neighbors notified regarding this? I have a piece of property that's not that far away. I thought I was notified last time on the original project. Maybe I missed it. So what you have here, and these are questions I would like staff to answer. What is the zoning for this particular permit? I thought this was in a single family residential neighborhood. And of course, you saw the pictures of an extremely prolific business going on in the neighborhood. And if I recall, the Emerald Kid project was, and I feel sorry for Lucas and the family, but I think they have, and you can ask Mr. Lucas, if they had an invasion there where they were held up at gunpoint or taser point and taken to a facility and robbed. So this is what you are bringing into these neighborhoods, totally inappropriate use for any kind of a commercial use of this nature. And now you are possibly expanding this. It should have never been permitted before. Expanding this to, and maybe I didn't get that, but 5 daily tours, 5 days a week with possibly 6 buses per tour. How many of you people would appreciate being in a single family residence neighborhood and having a commercial business of this size with a history of having home invasions in your backyard? So I really think that this, and this is, like I say, it's within a long stone's throw of property that I own, and obviously the road and everything would be impacted by a major commercial development in a residential area and zone. And I didn't see in the picture any of the other parcels totally inundated. There are other grows up there, I'm aware of that. Last time this was brought forward, there are CC&Rs. Apparently none of the neighbors have litigated on this, and that's not your purview, is what I've been told. But you ought to really take into the correct usage of property. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the correct usage for a zoning, and to put this kind of a development and then go ahead and blow it up even more with more. I mean, you saw the structure there. That would be in your backyard, and you could be the neighbor of that with potentially, I don't know what it was. It was 5 daily tours at 6 buses and 5 days a week. That part should definitely be deleted. The applicant seemed to say it was nothing you really wanted, so that part of the project should go away. And as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know if they ever dealt with the fence. I didn't see whether the fence, there was a major thing on fence height, a whole bunch of other criteria. Hopefully they took care of it. But this was never a proper use in this neighborhood, and it should not be expanded in any way, shape, or form. But that's just my opinion. And I own 48 acres, I think, not that far, a little bit up the road. And I sure wouldn't want to have this in my neighborhood. And I sure would not want to have it devalue the property of my property just around the corner. And I don't quite understand why I wasn't notified, but maybe I'm 10 feet out of the 100 feet or 300 feet or whatever it is. Thank you for my opportunity to speak. And maybe you can ask get some clarification regarding the home invasion from the person who is applying for this, and how that worked for them and how it might work for you if you were a neighbor and accidentally had that come down in your neighborhood. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Clint. Next is public 4162. Unmute yourself, please. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead and speak.
My name is Vicky, and I'm the next door neighbor to the Emerald Kid. I wrote a letter to the planning department stating several concerns that I have for expanding the project. And I'm not sure why those were not addressed by the planner. But one of my first concern is the amount of increased traffic coming into a very small cul-de-sac that has a gate that 2 cars cannot pass through at the same time. The road is not wide enough for 2 cars to come down into the cul-de-sac at the same time. And it is a residential area. I'm concerned about being able to walk from my home at the bottom of the cul-de-sac with no sidewalks, and having 15 employees and 5 tour buses, and then the residential traffic coming in for these 2 parcels. There's 6 parcels that come off of this cul-de-sac. There's 3 parcels at the top on the right-hand side that are blown up completely with many, many greenhouses. And that's a whole other subject that I won't get into. But I have proposed a alternate driveway for Lucas to use for his project, coming directly off of Branham Mountain Road at the other end of his property. It would run through both of his pieces of property, and it would cut down on the traffic coming into my cul-de-sac. Second point I'd like to address is safety. I'm a single older woman, and I agree to have the grows, but I'm just really, really unhappy with the development of both of the grows that are going on around me. So I'm not feeling very safe. I know that Lucas has provided a watchman at night, but as a property owner in Humboldt County for the last 47 years, I'm appalled that there's not more consideration given to property owners, and notification and actual communication, on-site visits. I don't believe that the planner has even been out here to see the site. the cul-de-sac comes into, when you're leaving the cul-de-sac, you come onto Brandon Mountain Road, and it's a blind corner coming from the top part of Brandon Mountain, where people go down the road at 45 miles an hour. And that's a blind corner coming out of the cul-de-sac. So I would like to see a traffic study done. I would like to see very specific limitations on any kind of tourism coming into my neighborhood, my residential neighborhood. And I would like to see a different driveway into the big commercial business from the other end of the property, which is a vacant field, which would not impact, the field at all. The ground is rocky, and it's not like it's a swamp to build a road through. So that's my opinion. It's my first time talking at one of these meetings, and I really appreciate you letting me voice my concerns. I do have a good repertoire with Lucas, and I'm not trying to squelch what he has going on, but I do believe that a lot of this could be taken to a different location. I don't believe that a lot of it should be done in a residential area. I know the resident on the south side of Lucas's property are longtime residents, and I'm not sure how they feel about.
To wrap it up, Vicki.
Okay, I'm finished. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. The next caller is 6670. Unmute yourself, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Madeline DeLapp, Humboldt County Growers Alliance. I am calling to speak in favor of the Emerald Kids Project. Lucas is one of our longtime members, and have worked with him and known him for the past couple of years. What he's trying to build out is a micro business license, which will allow him to do the light manufacturing distribution. This is an opportunity for him and for our cannabis industry to create more localized value-added products, and it helps address some of the hangups that we have with distribution. I would also like to just make a couple comments in response to the last caller. I am looking right now at Google Earth, and I would like to note that the last caller is also a 10,000 square foot licensed cultivator, and that there are about 8 different greenhouses in the neighborhood directly around. So when she also just said that this area is being, quote, blown up, as the previous caller said, that this neighborhood is known for cultivation. This is not a private cul-de-sac. It is a 300-foot long public road that is 25 feet wide, and that to develop a new road through a property involves land clearing, sediment clearing, tree removal. That has a whole lot of additional environmental impacts. And so I ask you to be able to move this project forward. I know that public accommodation and tourism is it's new for our community. It's new for our industry. We don't know a lot of what's going on with it. If Lucas is willing to participate in a pilot project with the county to see how this works out, that sounds great. And yeah, I ask you just to simply move this project forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller is 9072.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Riley Morrison. I'm a Willow Creek resident. I am calling in support for the Emerald Kids Project. It's really exciting to hear a micro business coming to a local cultivator in Willow Creek. It's a great opportunity for Willow Creek and a great opportunity for Humboldt County. I would like to address the first caller, Kent Zawalski's slanderous claims of a robbery at that property. I just want to let him know that he was incorrect, that Lucas's property was not the one that was robbed. And I think it's a great project. And I just want to reiterate also what Madeline had said. Looking forward to more pilot projects that allow tourism to develop in Willow Creek in a responsible way with mitigation. And I hope that Vicky can understand where Lou's coming from and they come to a middle ground. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
I can't hear. I can't hear.
Alan, you're muted.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Courtney.
Hi, I am a neighbor. I live just up the road. I've been in Humboldt my entire life for 40 years, and I've been in Willow Creek for about half of that. And I'm calling in support of this project. They are really an ideal small-scale farm. The property looks really clean. It's very quiet every time I drive by there. And that the tourism project, it sounds like it's going to be a lot smaller than tourism buses. It's just a small scale project is what I'm hearing pervade. He's really cleaned up the property. It looks like a nice little homestead with actually a pretty small cultivation site compared to a lot of what's going on around us in Humboldt. This nursery can create a lot of jobs, which we're really lacking in our community right now, and can bring some much needed tourism as well to Willow Creek. So thank you for hearing everything I had to say. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good night.
Thank you, Courtney. Next caller is Lori S. Esquire. I apologize on the pronunciation.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I was just calling in support of this project. I've been working with Lucas and the Emerald Kid for, about 4 years now. I know that he is a very upstanding and responsible businessman, educated. He's brought a lot of good into that community. And their company cares about that community and giving back. And I think that tourism, if it is gonna, bring some notoriety to Humboldt, that he's an ideal business, or Emerald Kid's an ideal business to help make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is 5375. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Jones. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I have been a Willow Creek resident since 2008. My husband and I also own a Willow Humboldt, which is a licensed farm in Willow Creek, and I'm also calling on behalf of the Willow Creek Cannabis Alliance. Lucas has been a member of ours for over 1.5 years, and he's been very community-minded. I'd like to note that after discussing the project with Lucas, that the 15 employees also include Lucas himself, his partner, and then 2 other people that are involved in the project that actually live on the property where the micro business is being proposed. So actually the number is more like 11 than the 15. And also that from my experience with Lucas, he's very professional, and I think that, and he's also community minded. So I think that if there was a reason that there was disturbance with too much traffic on the tourism side, I do believe that there would be some way to work together in the community to find some common ground. And it sounds like the neighbors are in communication. So I'd like to put my support out there for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing one last hand up, that's Lucas Sanders. I'd ask that he speak one more time if he wants to talk to any of the items brought up. Go ahead, Lucas.
Hey, thank you. I just want to say real quick, thanks to everyone for speaking. I wanted to say that the CCRs on these parcels were all signed by all of us owners, including Vicky, to allow all this activity. And it's really just she knows she can call me anytime, and no matter what, I've always made her happy, and we've always been great neighbors. I've nothing bad to say about her, and obviously she has nothing bad to say about me. So just wanted to state that.
Thank you, Lucas. All right, with that, I am going to close the public comment and bring this back to the commission for deliberation. Any discussion?
Before could we respond to a couple things?
Yeah, let's let the director like to respond to some of the questions and comments brought up.
So maybe the first thing to start with is that in terms of the public notification, I don't know why Mr. Swatsky did not get a notice. He should have. He's within the radius. I believe this property is reflected in the zoning map that's attached to the staff report, shows this as being AG, which is agriculture general, not a residential zone. If it were a residential zone, cannabis cultivation would not be allowed at this location. The CCLUO does allow cannatourism on sites and in locations with limitations. Some of those limitations are good access, paved roads, locations where cannabis is permitted, principally permitted, which is this location. The CCLUO in the narrative of the discussion identifies that one of the things the planning commission or decision-making body should consider is whether or not the number of trips and number of tours a day are appropriate for the site. So obviously that's something that's been brought up as a concern by the public, is whether or not the 5 tours with up to 12 cars per day is, or 5 tours with up to 12 cars at a time is too large. And so that may be something the commission would want to deliberate on. But this commercial activity with the micro business and cannatourism is something that is, the commission will recall was incorporated into the CCLUO as being important accessory uses to support the whole cannabis industry. And I'd just like to say that, I think we made the recommendation to use an exemption on this, and really this should be better covered as something that is consistent with the adopted EIR for the commercial cannabis land use ordinance.
I just have one question of the planner. There was a recommendation by the neighbor of an alternative route going into the site. Was that something you could comment on? Is that even feasible?
I'll respond to that. That's something we've not studied at this point. If that's something the commission wants us to look at, we would be happy to look at that, and we would ask that you continue it to give us an opportunity to do that.
No, I'm not recommending that you continue it. He was indicating that he wasn't in a big hurry to do the tours. If he wanted to increase the tours, if he found that he was successful, there's other ways you could get people there. You could have your own small vehicle, pick them up at some other location and bring them in without having multiple cars. So there's ways to get around it. I was just curious if he was to expand that business, or, maybe it's better to have one bus load of people than cars coming up all day long, and there's ways around it. But if he was to expand his commercial or his public tours, that he might look at an alternative route. And I didn't know if that was even feasible. Does he have right of way? What would it cost? Does it make any sense? Maybe that's something that could be put into the permit, that if he's to expand any of the public access, that he look at an alternative route, or paving the road. There's other options to improving the access.
So I see that there's a couple hands up, and the applicant also has put his hand back up and would like to probably address what Peggy was speaking about. So let's, any other commissioners like to ask questions? And the first one I see is Noah and then Ronnie. So let's go ahead, Noah, and then we'll come back to Lucas at the end to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, real quick, because I want to let us get back to Lucas, but I just wanted to point out that, he did say he's not, if I understood the applicant, he's not trying to initiate a tourism operation on his own. I heard him say that he just would like it to be eligible to be included in a larger one run by a county, the county or some other group. And so I guess I thought we could maybe limit the conditions around that to make it clear. It's not that we're, permitting either now or in several years. As I understand it, it's not the intention to do this on its own, but merely to be a participant in a larger tourist operation if it happens. And if there is one, I guess my implied point is that larger tourist operation should have a chance to develop. We should be able to review and develop the details and approve the details of that. Anyway, hope that made sense. Thanks.
Ronnie, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noted that it is zoned agriculture, as the director had mentioned, and not residential zoning, but is it primarily a residentially used area versus ag? It's hard to answer, huh?
Well, one of the things that we are seeing is that there are areas where people have really developed probably what would be considered more of an estate residential style development, but the zoning is agriculture. Okay. And so one of the struggles that we have had, and this is why this is in a community plan area, is that we have areas that are zoned ag, which principally permit agriculture, residences as an accessory use to the agriculture. And so then there becomes a conflict between the residential use of the property and the agriculture.
Right. Thank you. My attention was caught on a letter that the department had received from Pastor Josh Stevens, Willow Creek Bible Church. And I just want to bring up a couple of his concerns and see if they are adequately addressed. Nurses at the school voiced their opinion at the meeting, stating that during processing season, many children have terrible allergies, which are exacerbated by the noxious output of the fields. And with processing plant a mere 310 feet from the school, this is of great concern. So that's one thing. Another was the traffic. And then lastly was we must look to the safety of the children leaving the school because of the, which crossed the street from the said location due to the increase in traffic. So that would be of concern to me as well, and to see how it's been addressed. I didn't pick up on that.
Well, it's my recollection, I haven't done the actual measurements yet, but I know we did when the cannabis cultivation was approved, that it's not within 600 feet of the school. The cultivation couldn't be approved within 600 feet of the school. There is quite a bit of cultivation approved in this particular area. I don't know what the odor level is at the school. So I'm not going to comment on that. Okay. In terms of the traffic associated with the visitation to the site, the Canada tourism, that is something that obviously is within the purview of the commission to address. And if what the applicant is attempting to do is to be open to receive a tourist provider, and I know there is a local provider within Humboldt County that offers tours, puts people in his van, and he takes people from site to site. If that's what he wants to be open to, That would certainly be a whole lot less trips than how this is currently structured. And so that is something that the commission could consider, is limiting the number of trips and or limiting the types of visits. If it's just visits in a small van or certainly not a bus, that's far different than some of the characterizations that have been made about what could be with 6 buses showing up.
All right. Thank you. The last question that I had, and then I'll be finished, is do you know how many other cannabis operations are currently permitted in this same general area?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to estimate 5.
Director, I could probably take a stab at that. I would say the most important thing to some of the concerns about this area and the residential nature of it is perhaps the properties that are all off of this same cul-de-sac, which is Stagecoach Lane. And there are 6 parcels that come off of that. Every single one of those 6 parcels is either permitted for cannabis or in the cannabis permit process. When you move out a little bit further, especially heading up Brandon Mountain Road, you have at least 3 or 4 more within a 1,000-foot radius.
Mm-hmm.
The next hand up was Brian Mitchell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to say that it seems fairly awkward to ask us to know how to react or respond and make sure that we have adequate conditions over a tourism program that has yet to be fleshed out in any detail. And so I feel like I'd be more comfortable either having that portion of the approval come back to us once there is a specific tourism plan, so that we can make sure that the operation plans and conditions of approval adequately protect against adverse impacts, or to put in some sort of condition of approval that says that the operations plan needs to be approved by the director to make sure that adequate mitigations have put in place so that the tourist plan doesn't create traffic and other problems for the neighborhood.
Thank you, Brian. Melanie, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. Well, most of what I wanted to say was in regards to some of the incorrect and unclear information that was presented earlier. So the last 2 callers and the director went through that, which is good to have that for out there for the public who didn't go through all of the reports. I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of the project, but that the condition that Commissioner Levy proposed, I don't feel comfortable with it from a legal standpoint. Simply because if they were to become part of a co-op or some other, formation where it would be difficult for the applicant potentially with CEQA or other regulations or guidelines, given that he might still be considered as owner of said business. So I sympathize with what the intent was, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with that condition. I really like what Commissioner Mitchell just proposed. I would feel comfortable with that, having it go through the director. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Mike, you have your hand up. Go ahead,
Yes,
Mike.
thank you. Part of it's been addressed already, but I was going to point out that in that 19.0 Canna Tourism public access, that the applicant has the two parts there, would try and initiate his own private system or take part in a farmer run and or county/community plan to give upwards of 3 to 5 daily tours. I'm all for the tourism aspect here, but having the private system, his own private system, giving carte blanche to that, I'm not okay with that. I would like to see something come back to us or to the director, but I'm all for having a farmer or community plan to give upwards of 3 to 5 daily tours during that business hour time. That would cut down on the traffic there. And I do understand that all the parcels around there are cannabis type usages. So I don't see a problem with the rest of this application.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions from the commission? If not, and I'm not seeing any more hands up, I'm going to let Lucas, he's got his hand up. I'm going to let him address this one last time. So go ahead, Lucas.
Hey, thank you. So I just wanted to say the tourism thing was literally brought to my attention by staff at the county. The 12 vehicles, I think everyone's getting caught up on that. That was just listed for how much overflow parking is allowed on my parcel. If this were to take place, I envisioned buses coming to hit 5 to 6 to 8 to 10 different farms, stopping in quickly and being on their way. Now, if tourism is such a big deal, which it seems like it is to everyone, I'm totally okay with if anyone wants to just cancel this piece, we can come back to tourism later if everything else is okay with everyone. I'd also like to point out that as of last year, I was the only one living in this cul-de-sac. The top 3 parcels are all for cultivation. The 2 parcels I own were for cultivation, and Vicky didn't build her manufactured home, which I had to sign and allow on the CCNR. She didn't build that and move in until last year. So this is a predominantly agricultural neighborhood and has been. It has only just become more residential, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. With that, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. So, do we have any more questions? Do we have a motion?
Well, I mean, I think what the applicant just said, I don't disagree. I actually liked what Mike said about separating out the 2 different types of tourism. I think that's maybe what I was trying to suggest is that we limit it just to the things that are part of a larger operation, and those would be, I was presuming, occasional and run under a permit and the oversight of either the director or us. So if we remove the right to do individual tourist operations, which the owner just said that was never the point for him, does that satisfy everybody's concern? Because then I just like to basically approve this. Or as he just offered, we can take all tourism out altogether and deal with that separately if it comes up, which we should if it's his own operation. I'm just not sure if we have to remove all tourism or just individually initiated tourist enterprise. That's more of a question.
Well, I'd like to speak up on that. I think the private part that was in that initiative there in 19.0, initiate his own private system. If that were to be stricken out, I would be okay with keeping that Canna Tourism public access in there because that does bring it to where it's not a lot of traffic going in. I believe Canna Tourism is another way of bringing people into the area and people spending money and staying here in our area and visiting the area. So I'm okay with the rest of the application here, other than that one little part there.
The director has a thought on it, so I'll let him chime in.
If this would please the commission, a condition could be added to state that the operations plan shall be modified to restrict the Canada tourism to a maximum of 5 group tours per day. Each group tour shall be in a small van, subject to review and approval of the planning director.
I like that.
Sure.
Somebody like to make a motion to that?
I'll make a motion that the commission has considered this project exempt from environmental review pursuant to sections 15301 and section 15303 of the state CEQA guidelines. And we make all of the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit modification and adopt the resolution approving the Emerald Kid Incorporated conditional use permit modification as recommended by staff, subject to the recommended conditions and the additional modified condition articulated by Director Ford.
I'll
Director
second.
Ford would like to comment on something. I'm not sure what he has to say.
And thank you, Commissioner Levy. I was wondering if you'd be willing to modify your motion to indicate that the commission finds that the Canada Tourism is consistent with the previously certified environmental impact report for the commercial cannabis land use ordinance, rather than finding it exempt.
I would be willing to so modify my motion.
And the second, yes.
So we have a modified motion and a second. Any discussion on that? And I see one hand up, but I don't see who it is. I apologize. Oh, Melanie, go ahead. I'm still not seeing.
Yeah, it was
Go
up
ahead.
before for a while, but I was actually going to say that I think we should ask the director for clarification, given that it was the director who suggested it to the applicant, and then the director did exactly that. So I'm very satisfied with it as it stands now.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't see you sooner. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion on it? If not seeing none, I will call for the vote. Laura?
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Ronnie Pellegrini,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Abstain.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Carries with a 6 vote yes with 1 abstention. Excuse me. Come up with the word. At this time, before we move on to our next, I think we'll take a small break, make it short, and get back to it. So we'll see you back in about 5 minutes or so. Thank you. All right, everybody, welcome back. With that, we will move from the consent agenda items that were pulled, and we will go to the public hearings. And the one that we have tonight is the Lost Boys Farm conditional use permit in the Fisher Road, Hydesville area. And I'll take a staff report, please.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Is that working?
Yes, it is. You might turn your volume up a little bit.
Okay. Maybe I'll just try to speak up.
There you go.
Hear me okay?
That's better.
Okay. I'm Keenan Hilton. I am the assigned planner for the Lost Boys Farms LLC project. It's an application for a conditional use permit for the operation of 1 acre of new mixed light cannabis cultivation and distribution within the Carlotta-Hydesville community planning area. To start off with an acknowledgement that you received, I think, 3 supplemental packets with a total of 12 additional items today, which is quite a lot. And I will address it quickly. It is, okay. So the packets included 2 letters, additional letters of community opposition to the project. Included 1 letter of community support, several technical documents, including a letter on the well that was recently installed and a sound study. It had an additional referral response from the Hydesville County Water District. There was a letter and an email from the applicant to the commission. There was a letter from the applicant's attorney to the commission. And there were substantial revisions to the operations plan and a revised site plan. It was a lot of material to process at a late hour. However, in staff's reply to one of the submittals, which was also included, we outlined why the project has been kept on tonight's agenda. That although the materials are substantial and they're worthy of review, staff's recommendation of denial remains the same. And that's that while health and safety, I think, have been meaningfully addressed in these revised materials, they do not prove that the project will not adversely affect public welfare. I will go into this later. But first, a quick explanation of the proposal. The subject parcel is on Fisher Road, which here's Highway 36 and Fisher Road comes up here and leads to the subject parcel. It's about 3/4 of a mile north of Highway 36. It is zoned agriculture exclusive. The same is true of the parcels that surround on the north, east, and south. These over here are AG parcels. This is the plan that was considered in the written staff report. I've included the amended site plan later in the presentation, but I will discuss the project as it was presented for the staff report in this main part. The project is for 1 acre of new mixed light cultivation with 4 cycles of cultivation per year. Cannabis would be planted in native soil. Irrigation water would be sourced from an on-site well as rainwater catchment from greenhouse roofs. Renewable energy would be provided by PG&E. The project does occur on prime soils. The total footprint of the project would cover no more than 20% of them. The original proposal included 19 employees. It also had ancillary nursery and processing, as well as distribution, though that is distribution just for product that is produced on the site. So here is a little bit of a helpful guide for the context. So what you see here, these are all cannabis projects that are either in process or approved. What we're seeing here is about the half mile surrounding the subject parcel, which is this one here. But what I would like to call your attention to is the fact that, of course, there are quite a number of cannabis applications in the Hydesville area, but this one, it just so happens that this road, which goes up here and comes along, I've highlighted the area that is parcels accessed by that road, and you see that it's the only cannabis application. So while there is a lot of cannabis activity in Hydesville in general, this community along Fisher Road, this is the only one. This parcel here, which is of course almost directly adjacent, is accessed from this side along Hill Lane. So staff is recommending denial, and what that stems from is, I'm sure you're all familiar, there are higher standards for projects within community planning areas. And what I've highlighted here is that the Planning Commission may deny projects based on substantial evidence that impacts of the proposed projects on existing uses will have a significant adverse effect on public health, safety, or welfare. So, the key terms there being, substantial evidence, and I'm going to discuss specifically welfare. Health and safety, I think, are easier to formulate into a more binary finding of yes or no. The applicant has modified the project a lot to address those. However, welfare is a more qualitative finding, and for reasons that I will discuss shortly, the record does include substantial evidence that community welfare will be adversely affected by the project under consideration. There are three pieces of evidence that are the basis of staff's recommendation, or three sort of ways of approaching it. So to date, the planning department has received 25 letters of opposition from 32 neighbors and community stakeholders. 5 of the letters were written by neighbors sharing a parcel boundary. 17 letters were composed by people that live on Fisher Road, Cooper Drive, or Deer Creek Road. 3 of the letters were written by family members of people living in that area. These have all been included in the staff report and the supplemental packets. They raise a lot of concrete concerns, but really what I'd like to call your attention to this evening is the prevailing sentiment that you get reading them is that this type of cannabis project, an acre of cannabis, it just doesn't fit with the character of the place, and it would adversely affect their experience of living in the valley. The area does have several intergenerational families, many longtime residents, and it was clearly communicated in these letters that they think that the project would change their perception of the place. The second piece was that in light of receiving a portion of these letters, some of these letters, staff was motivated to see if there was room for community conciliation. So the planning department coordinated a community meeting on the site that was attended by the applicant, Supervisor Fennell, the planning director, me, and approximately 30 community members. Staff attempted to steer the conversation to identify potential mitigations and design changes that might address the concerns of the neighbors. And at the end, we had not identified any. No mitigations were identified that would assuage people's concerns. And this is the principal reason why, upon receipt of revised materials, staff decided to go ahead with the hearing tonight, is that we do not believe, based on the input that we've gotten from the community, that 1 acre of commercial cannabis will be accepted and that we can make that community welfare finding regardless of the project design. The last point is the question of zoning and the uses thereon. This is continuing from a theme earlier in this evening. The parcel and the surrounding parcels, as I mentioned, are all agricultural. So it's agriculture exclusive and agriculture general. What is allowed on the ag parcels, sometimes conflicts with the residential uses that are also allowed thereon. For context, AE parcels have a minimum lot area of 60 acres. The parcels in this area range from 19 to 31, so they are all substandard for the zone. Consequently, there is a higher concentration of residences in this area. In this case, there are 8 residences within 600 feet of the parcel boundaries. And this leads to the community characterizing the area more as a rural residential neighborhood rather than, a traditional, very large parcel ag area. And community members have reported that neighbors have stated their intent to move because of the project. So at this point, I'd like to circle back around to the new materials because, again, it was a substantial amount of new information that was sent today. And I also think that a number of the public comments to come will refer to these revisions. So what we see here is the revised site plan. There are a number of changes. Most consequently, we have these facilities had previously been over here. So it's a higher concentration of the activities and leaving more room for, potentially more traditional agricultural operations in this part of the parcel. And in addition, as I mentioned, there was a sound study required by the ordinance. There were also changes in project design, lowering the employee count from 19 to 14. Also, a proposal to shuttle employees down the street because there had been concerns about traffic, and also to add a security guard. These are some of the changes among many that, again, are highlighted and included in the packet. The applicant argues that the project as amended meets the requirements of the code. And really, I think that they go a long way to address the health and safety concerns, the specific concerns raised. However, I do not think that it goes far enough or, to make the finding about welfare. And also, in order to understand in context, I think it's important to make clear that staff articulated also that the intent to recommend denial because of this exact concern on May 14th, 2020. And it has been discussed a lot over the past few months. So staff does not believe that the revised project proved compliance with the standards of the code. There was no evidence in the materials to prove that concerned neighbors and community stakeholders have changed their positions related to an acre of cannabis cultivation occurring on this site. The recommendation of denial, which remains unchanged, is based on staff's understanding that public welfare is a qualitative finding and that it is tied to the opinions and sentiments of the neighbors and stakeholders. The intent of that section of code is to ensure that cannabis activities are compatible with the communities that they occur within. So we recommend that the Planning Commission deny the project, and I would be happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Chair, if I could.
Go ahead, Director.
So one of the things I thought Keenan Hilton did a marvelous job of giving an overview of the project, but I want to just emphasize one particular attribute that is here that is kind of the thing that makes the finding so important, and that is the location of this within a community plan area. And those of you who were on the commission during the development of the CCLUO will recall that there was consideration of not allowing cannabis cultivation in community plan areas. And that ultimately was rejected in favor of giving a high degree of discretion within community plan areas and allowing an applicant to find that amazing location where there wasn't a lot of public controversy and where it would adversely affect the community. And so that is the nature of this analysis, and that's what places that incredible importance upon that particular finding that Mr. Hilton focused on.
Thank you, Director. I see we have a couple hands up. Noah, yours is the first one, so go ahead.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I'm actually pretty troubled by this recommendation and really rather perplexed. And I don't want to get into too much of the details until we've had a chance to hear all the public and the applicant's comments. But I just, it's particular to the question about why we're having this hearing tonight and why so much substantive material was delivered to us this morning. You know, I think I understand Keenan's explanation as to why. First of all, I want to make an ex parte disclosure, which is that I had one conversation with Natalie DeLapp yesterday. I think she's going to speak about this. She is involved with this project or familiar with it. And she told me that the applicant had requested a continuance and that this letter that we did get this morning was submitted about a week ago. It's a pretty well-articulated, meaty discussion of the project from the applicant and what the applicant has done to try to meet the concerns of the neighbors and the planning staff. And yet we just received it this morning. And I don't know that most of us even had a chance to fully digest it in that time. So I'm still puzzled why, if the applicant wanted there to be a continuance and we as a planning commission were going to get all this material dumped on us at the last minute, why that request for a continuance couldn't be honored so that we could have more opportunity to digest it. That part confuses me.
Thank you. Do you want to address it?
I'd be happy to respond to that. I think the short answer to that is that oftentimes you've got a situation where you've not only got an applicant and a staff report, and in this particular case, you've got the public. And the public is often greatly inconvenienced by having hearings put off. There has been no doubt about where the staff recommendation has been on this since May of 2020. No doubt. We offered to refund fees if the applicant would withdraw the application in May of 2020. We made that offer again in October of 2020. And so this should not be a surprise to anybody.
You're muted, Noah. Still muted.
My apologies. Thanks for letting me just follow up with the director. You know, in the staff report, it says that the applicant has been advised on several occasions that these concerns, if not adequately addressed, would result in a recommendation of denial. And yet what I see is a record of him doing everything that's asked of him as I understand it. And so what I want to know from the staff is what was asked of the applicant to address the concerns that they didn't do that results in the recommendation of denial, other than withdraw the project, because I am concerned that applicants can control certain things, but the opinion of the community is one thing they cannot control. They can control their efforts to meet with the community, to hear the community, to hold a meeting with the community, to make adjustments to their project based on what they heard, but they can't at the end of the day control the opinions of the community. So I'm just not clear what it is that they were asked to do in order to get to yes that they didn't do.
Yeah, and I think if I may, John, that at the time, so there was initially the letter sent on May 14th, 2020, in which we said, essentially there has been really significant community pushback, to this point. I think there had been perhaps 6 letters received, and this is significant. Our understanding of the code is such that, this leads to denial. We had a meeting after that. And in the aftermath of the meeting, I sent an email to the applicant summarizing the points. And one of the ones that I think, let's see, what page is this? Page 5 of the staff report, that the planning division suggested that the applicant reach out to the community, listen to the concerns, and propose a revised project that clearly addresses these concerns. And so, the guidance given was to go out and directly engage, because again, we think that this welfare finding has to do with the community perception of the project. And I believe, and the applicant can add to this, but I believe what happened is that he did respond in a very meaningful way and thoughtful way to what staff had articulated, but that there wasn't the direct contact with the community. And so when there were revisions made, there was still great community opposition to the project. And staff initiated the community meeting in October to discuss those changes.
Thank you, Damon. I see Mike has his hand up as well. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, thank you. So I have a couple of questions here for staff. Where in the report on any of the drawings exactly show the boundaries of the community zone?
I'm gonna pull it up real quick on my computer and then share screen if that works.
Go ahead.
And also tell us the page.
And so here is the community planning area boundary. This is Hyattsville, Carlotta. And the parcel is, I believe it is this one right here. So this map was not included in the staff report. But these are the bounds of the Hyattsville, Carlotta community planning area.
So all of the purple lines there?
Everything that's within this is Hyattsville, Carlotta. And then this is Fortuna over here, the community planning area.
Okay, so put your cursor again on the parcel. Okay, so right there, near the border, and I don't see much else on the east or the, which way is this differentiated? North is up?
Yes.
So on the eastern side there, they're right close there, okay. There was one other question I had that Noah had asked me quite a few things that I had on my mind as well. I will come back to it if that comes back up. Oh, the question is, what exactly is public welfare? What is that definition?
So I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Director Ford, but I don't believe that the term welfare is actually defined, though it is one of the central parts of the conception of a general plan. It is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public of Humboldt County. You look like you want to add something, Director Ford?
No, I think you've done pretty well. It has to do with a lot of different things, and it can be attitudes, it can be community perceptions, it can be values, community values, and so welfare is very much contextually dependent.
Yes, and to go off of that, because I spent a lot of time considering this question, because again, I think that health and safety, it's easier to arrive at a definitive answer of yes or no by setting up criteria. With welfare, it seems a little harder, and it really is depending on the context, just as the director said. For whatever it's worth, the definition that I found by typing it in for OED, Oxford English Dictionary, was health, happiness, and fortunes of a person or group. So it's the well-being of the public.
All right. So going back then to that zoning picture, could you outline where the other existing or other cannabis grows are inside of that community planning zone? So the green one is the proposed Lost Boys.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute myself. Yes, this one is Lost Boys, and the ones with stripes, I believe, are approved projects. Yellow are withdrawn, and other colors are in some stage of development. Another thing that's worth pointing out is the fact that this provision was not part of Ordinance 1.0. It was not a requirement in the CMMLUO. So a lot of the projects that you're seeing are projects that had been applied for under the previous ordinance. A lot of them, honestly, were zoning clearance certificates, and so that is why you see this. And it was, in fact, that was the reason for including this provision in Ordinance 2.0, was the fact that communities responded quite strongly in some cases to having cannabis in these areas that had not seen these activities before.
So are you saying that all of those there that are in the process or have passed are all 1.0s?
I wouldn't think all, but shooting from the hip, I definitely feel comfortable saying that most. And John or Cliff, if you want to chime in there.
I would say that Mr. Hilton is right. Most of them are a reflection of 1.0. Those where you see higher numbers in there starting like around the 15s are probably things where there have been modifications or they have processed a subsequent permit as required by the CCLUO to have ZCCs choose one of three paths within community plan areas. They can move more than 600 feet away from any residences, they can enclose, or they can get a conditional use permit. Some of them have done some things to approve a nursery or something like that. So the ones with the stripes are the ones that are approved. The ones with the solid colors are in some stage of the application process and have not reached decision yet.
Okay. I may come back to that, so just keep it handy. Thank you.
Okay. Nothing else. Looks like Brian's next with his hand up.
I think that what I need to say is more along the commentary line. I have a number of concerns that sort of echo what Commissioner Levy was getting towards, but I'll save those till after the public comment.
That would next would be Melanie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think that no matter whether you're happy with the state allowances given to cannabis farming or not, this recommendation has at least the appearance of being inconsistent. And I think that we need a little more information from staff or a little more explanation, given that we received recommendations for other projects, other similar projects with similar or greater level of public opposition or lack of outreach. And so it just means that we need to have a little bit more explanation as to why this particular project is different, because it has the appearance of not being so different on at least that aspect that we've discussed so far. Thanks.
Melanie, the director would like to respond to that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner McFord. That is a great question. And this is a different recommendation for us. And it really does have everything to do with the fact that this is in a community plan area and there is significant neighborhood opposition. If we were to go back and say, look at the Maple Creek project, which the commission denied, that was recommended for approval in spite of neighborhood opposition because it was not in a community plan area. Those of us that have lived through the 1.0 wars with the community plan areas and the revolt against having cannabis approved within those areas understand that there was a deep discussion about whether or not any additional cannabis cultivation should be approved within a community plan area. And the decision is that we didn't want to absolutely preclude things. We wanted to give an avenue, but that avenue was not a broad path that you could go ahead and get a free pass in a community plan area. It had to be in such a location and approved in such a way that it was not going to completely disrupt the neighborhood. And so that is the basis of this recommendation. I mean, it's really that simple. In terms of what Mr. Hilton said, everything else about this project meets the zoning ordinance requirements. Everything else. The fact of the matter is, though, is that when the CCLUO was approved, there was this implied commitment that we weren't going to just be approving all kinds of cannabis cultivation within community plan areas.
Thank you. So is it the staff's opinion then that this project is unique in the sense that it has both public opposition and it is in a community planning area.
That is correct.
Okay, so we haven't seen anything else like this yet.
Not to this magnitude. The closest thing that you've seen recently was the application that was out off Drake Hill Road, off Loop Road, Loop Road, outside of Fortuna, where there a ZCC that was originally approved under 1.0, and they came in and they got a conditional use permit for that, and a few of the neighbors were. They were present, 2 or 3, but it wasn't the kind of pushback that we're seeing on this, and they weren't vehemently opposed to it.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, I think that's very helpful in terms of clarification for everybody.
Thank you, Melanie. Ronnie, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just first start off by saying that I think I completely agree with the staff recommendation on this one. In fact, I was out Fisher Road today, and I have spoke with some of the residents. And as Director Ford and our planner, Mr. Hilton, said, it's not just 1 or 2 community members that are opposing this thing. It's all of them. If you'd go out Fisher Road, it's a narrow, windy road. There's no shoulders. And if you get down there, you won't see one hoop house, not one. There's nothing else out there. There's residences and there's ag land. And some of the opposition, imagine this. Okay, you're a young couple, build your dream house, start a family. There's your kids can ride their bike in front of their property. And then the cannabis grows come in and it's kind of like ruined your dream and ruined your neighbor's dream. And that's what they're feeling out there. This is a multi-generational area that father, son, grandparents, whatever you want to call it. This is a kind of a special area. There's not one cannabis operation there currently. You don't see a single one. That's why they're opposed to it. This is an area where they've traditionally been agriculture, and that's what they want to continue doing, and not cannabis agriculture. And that's why you've seen such big opposition to it. And there's other things that I won't get into, but that's the things that I've been hearing from the people, and this is in my area. So I kind of have my ear to the ground, and as Director Ford said, it's not 1 or 2. This is the whole community, and it's in the community plan area. So I just want to relay that, and that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
All right. Any other commissioners have questions or comments at this point? Seeing none, I'll make one comment. I've had quite a few calls on this one. A lot of people in opposition. Reminds me a lot of the project out on Warren Creek Road that the neighbors were all pretty much against, and I believe we went against that one, said no to it because the neighborhood outcry was so strong. It was very much the same kind of a neighborhood, just farmland and family residences out there, so very similar. That being said, I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of attendees tonight. It's only showing 5 that have their hand up, but there's 41 on the list. I am going to open it up to public comment. I'm going to hold them to the 3-minute limit to keep it moving along. And let's see. So the very first one is Allison Jackson. Please go ahead, Allison. Welcome.
Welcome. I live at 205 Deer Creek Lane. I was against this project initially because it's at the driveway. It's the driveway to my house. It goes right through the side of this. I'm against the revised plan because it doesn't address the issues that we've consistently raised. The revised plan moves the processing over really at the base of just not my driveway to my home, but to the driveways to my neighbors, like the Burts, the Huddlers, the Weeks. Mr. Meter, Gail Jenner, Christy Williamson, the Budwicks, the Mastersons. You're putting, this project has its processing and its drying shed in that 150-year-old barn at the base of our driveways. Now, if you look on your packages, you'll see this thing that says Cooper site plan, 50-foot easement. That's real misleading, because what there is a single lane, 10-foot wide private driveway to all of our homes that you could basically from that driveway spit and hit the drying shed and where the proposed processing is going to go. That's why it's just so inappropriate to have this type of commercial operation here. Now, the idea that you're going to put now armed guards with from 8 p.m. to the morning to protect against it. So when we drive a home at night, we're past lights, armed guards on our way home, just feet away. That's why this is so, it's just offensive. Absolutely offensive. The scope of this commercial grow in this location is just inappropriate. And Mr. Wheeler knows that. He's tried this, I believe he tried to get a place on Rocky Lane, and for the same reason, that was nice, so he moved on here. Now, there's lots of areas that are outside community plans or that you could get away from residential areas. We live here. I've got a 5-acre parcel, and I will tell you that on his site plan, he has this thing that says Cooper Road buffer. Well, let me tell you what the buffer is. That buffer is my home and my property, the Hudler's property, and the Weeks' property. We're not buffers. That's where we live.
You have 30 seconds.
The staff continually says deny the report. Deny this the first time. The residents keep on saying deny it. Please deny it, because this is just the wrong place. There are other areas. This is where all of us live. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. The next caller is Jack Wheeler.
Hello, everyone. This is Jack Wheeler. I'm the property owner and applicant for the proposed site. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I would like to ask the chair, will I be limited to 3 minutes to present today?
No, but what I would rather you did was wait till after everybody else has spoke, and then I'll give you extra time at the end to address all their issues and speak.
Understood.
When you want to.
Thank you.
If you're okay with that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we'll move on to public 5968. You have to unmute yourself.
Hi.
There you go.
My name is Corinne Allen. I'm currently an employee at the applicant's family farm. I'm a local here. I've been born and raised there. My grandparents and family live in Hyattsville. I've been in the cannabis industry for over 10 years now. I'm a trimmer. I work trimming to support my family. Myself and other local women, we've been out just chasing the jobs in the hills. We've worked in sheds, garages without heaters, air conditioning, proper restrooms, dodgy employers.
You're breaking up.
When I applied for my, am I breaking up? When I applied for my position at the applicant's family farm, I was blown away with how clean it is, what a nice organized place it is. They pay me very well. I've never had job security like this in this industry. I think it would just be overwhelmingly positive to have more opportunities like this for us locals.
We're losing you.
Can you hear me? On a personal level, the applicant and his family, they're just good people. They're hardworking. They're highly ethical. I think anyone would be, it would be positive to have them as a neighbor in the community, creating jobs, creating money flow. my life has changed since I've worked there. I've been able to have savings growing. I've been able to ditch my food stamps. I just think I understand the fear. I understand, the fear of change, the stigma that comes with a cannabis farm. But I'm telling you, it's not like that. These people are very concerned with their employees. They take care of them. They are very respectful to their neighbors. I think that comes through with how much he's willing to do to, make amends with the neighbors and hear their concerns and address them.
You have 30 seconds left, ma'am.
Yeah, well, that's about it. Thank you for hearing me. And like I said, I think the opportunity to create jobs for us locals is just overwhelming.
Thank you.
What they've done here. You're welcome.
Thank you. Next caller is Eric Walls. You there, Eric? You have to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello, my name is Eric Walls. I own a farm over at 2500 Barber Creek Road. I also own another farm on Triple K Place, and I'm opening up another farm actually south of Fisher Road, down that end. And I attended this meeting just because I wanted to hear what neighbors were saying in my area, because of course there's always contention. And I will say this, that Jack called me to be on here to kind of provide a witness to his character that day. And I didn't see anything from Jack that showed that he was unwilling to address any of the concerns that the neighbors had. I did see from the neighbors though that they were very, I don't want to say angry or whatever, but they were very passionate about how they felt. And it didn't seem like they were ever gonna, no matter what Jack did, it would ever be good enough. And I gave them a word of caution on that day to, hey, times are not the same as they used to be. Things are different, and you cannot hold on and live by these broken ideas that you had. You have to learn to adapt and overcome. And that's part of what being in a community really is about, not about only protecting a few certain people. Because I moved there from San Diego, and I like being in Humboldt County. And when I hear the comments from neighbors like this, it really hurts my feelings. And it really makes me question about, do I even really belong here? When they say, I would have any farm here except for a cannabis farm. And I'm totally fine with my friends smoking weed, but I can't accept that near my house. That just, change cannabis with an ethnicity of another person. And that's exactly how I feel. It really, really does not make me feel good knowing that I'm a member of this community and that I see somebody like Jack trying to be a member of this community as well. Now, I will also say this, and I told Jack I would say this as well, is that I don't think that this project does actually meet or fits perfectly in that community. I think he really needs to tone it down. But the unfortunate part is that the Planning Commission has put in this 2.0 ordinance when they buckled onto the small ordinance, and he can't go back to the land style farming under basic hoop houses into the ground. He has to build these greater big greenhouses, provides a greater impact year round, greater noise. I really think that it's a terrible debacle the commissions put themselves in, the whole county, and the community now has to fight back and forth with what's going to be acceptable versus what was actually the easiest thing, just having basic plants in the ground, dealing with smell for maybe 2 months, which I don't even view as a problem. I don't think it's really a problem. I think it's just a sticking point that people want to complain about to try to push bogus claims through. And that's kind of how I see some of these claims is mostly bogus. So I really hope that there can be a comparable decision made. And I wish everybody the best of luck in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. The next caller is Jeff.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am here to speak on behalf of the project. There was a question earlier regarding what the definition of public welfare was. And public welfare has been defined by our California Supreme Court as to embrace regulations to promote the economic welfare, public convenience, and general prosperity of the community, and to justify the enactment and enforcement of zoning regulations reasonably calculated to further that end. Now, we have those regulations in place, and this project does meet those regulations. First, it's consistent with the Carlotta Hydesville Community Plan. It's parcel is located on an AE zone parcel with the primary use being agriculture. That's met. This is an agricultural product. Residential uses are an allowable use so long as they support the agriculture or are ancillary to the agriculture. This area is characterized as an agricultural area. It's not in the middle of a neighborhood. As you can see from the maps that are contained in the staff report, there's parcels contained here about 5 and 31 acres. The surrounding parcels are 20 acres in size. It is bounded by the west by a forest line segregating it from the Cooper Drive area. The second thing that I'd like to bring up is the applicant hasn't had an opportunity for a fair hearing in this process. The applicant proposed additional mitigations before the agenda was published. Those mitigations did not make it into your hands until 9:30 this morning. There's been no supplemental staff report with any of the mitigations prepared for your review. And one point I'd like to make on this recommendation by the planning staff, the job to weigh the evidence in support of this project or in denial of this project is with the planning commission, not the planning department. The mitigation measures proposed would allow, if they were published, they would allow further public discussion of the benefits of the communities of this project and a chance for meaningful public debate on the issues raised and the opportunity for the applicant to perhaps change people's minds or perceptions. I'd like to
wrap up.
I'd like to finish up. There's an incomplete record here. There's been correspondence with the planner by the applicant to address the community concerns and proposed mitigation measures that weren't included in the staff report. You're required to review all evidence and you don't have all this evidence before you. I'll conclude with that.
Your time's up. Thank you very much. Next caller is Cassidy Kemp.
No, you do.
Go ahead, Cassidy.
Yeah, this is Cassidy's grandfather, Gary Sarvinsky. I'm on her computer because I don't have one. And I've lived out there in the valley for 40 years, 6 months, and this is a big change for us. We came out there hoping to build a place for our grandkids, our great grandkids, and now this is coming up. And I just hope you all listen to Commissioner Pellegrini since she's come out and seen the area. It's a beautiful place, and they proposed 12 greenhouses and another. Now they moved the metal building behind the existing barn, and it's just not going to work. It's not a place for an operation like this to happen. And I hope all the commissioners got all the letters that we wrote. There's facts from all of us, and everybody just about says something different in their letters. And I hope they got the statement of facts report to look at too. There's a lot of things in that I'm quite sure other people are going to tell you about too. And then the Lost Coast Boys, he's got what he calls angels, Mr. Wheeler. He's got backers from Saigas. He's got them from Reno, Nevada, Santa Clara, Las Vegas, San Diego. What are these guys? They're in it for the money. They could care less about us. And Mr. Wheeler, he's the manager of the place. So I hope you guys vote this down. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next caller is 5146. You have to unmute yourself. 5146, are you there? Oh, there we go.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Lance Hunt. I live in one of the first homes on Fish Road with my wife and 2 kids. We bought our property back in 2013, and my wife grew up here since 1997. We built with our own bare hands a forever home that we knew our family and children would be raised in a safe area. With that being said, Mr. Wheeler's proposed industrial-sized marijuana operation will completely disrupt and jeopardize the safety of our family and our home. Mr. Wheeler's proposed project has zero business being developed in a residential area. First, the traffic his proposed operation will generate is astronomical and will dramatically compromise the safety of our children. Mr. Wheeler's 14 employees that he just lowered is almost the same of the amount of parcels past us on Fisher Road. They're going to be going by 4 times daily, going to work, leaving for lunch, coming back from lunch, and then leaving 4 times as much of the daily amount of traffic that's going down this road. This is a residential area. We walk, we play with our kids, we ride our bikes, and we'll be robbed of our safety due to the increased traffic Mr. Wheeler's operation will create on this narrow road with no sidewalks. Our next concern for safety is the potential increase of crime in this low crime area. Crime associated with cannabis grows, legal or not, is often increased and violent. This will put my family and I in fear every day of what could possibly happen. You know, my wife and I, we constantly have been thinking about this proposal, and we think of these fears in the back of our mind, like, will one night a bullet go through my child's window at any time, or are our neighbors safe? It's just heartbreaking to think, and we never imagined we would ever have to consider this when we decided to plant our roots here and raise our kids on Fisher Road. This is our home. This is what all our neighbors call home, is down this road. And Mr. Wheeler and
You have to wrap it up.
I can't remember. Okay, sorry. And the other guy that talked earlier that has an operation here in Heisville, I guarantee you these gentlemen do not live on these beautiful properties that they're proposing on. I guarantee you they do not live there.
Thank you.
So lastly, our Carlisle Heisville game plan is established. Okay, thank you guys for your time.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Trying to be fair to everyone. Next caller is Tara Kemp. Tara, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I first would like to reiterate the fact I wrote a letter and I made this comment at the meeting we had in October that I'm not quite sure why Mr. Wheeler did not go around to all the residences before he purchased the property to get a consensus of maybe, if people thought this was an allowable thing or not. And if he would have done that, he would have saved all the trouble of all of this stuff going on to begin with. Okay. My second thing is Humboldt County has the second highest homicide rate in the state of California. Additionally, the county has the highest rate of deaths by firearms. Sheriff Hansel has been quoted saying, drugs are a contributing factor dealing with marijuana or meth. Those two substances have contributed to many of the deaths in the county. He also admitted that there are many deaths that will never be accounted for due to the nature of these operations. The residents of Fisher Road are concerned about the safety of their homes and their lives in this isolated area where crimes would more likely occur as they have in other isolated areas associated with marijuana, legal or illegal. It takes the sheriff's department approximately an hour to respond to this area, and that would be a fast response. And that is far too long to properly protect these residents. We're not comfortable with the odds of violent crime being brought to our area and do not trust any sort of private security promised by the applicant. We do not support our homes and properties being put at risk for the sake of a marijuana grow. And I just hope that you all can understand where all of these families are coming from. I am Gary Sarvinsky's daughter, the heir of four. He has 4 children. We are the heirs to the property out there. And I never in a million years imagined we'd be having to deal with something like this. Thank you for your time. And I appreciate it. And I really, really hope you vote this down.
Thank you, Tara. The next caller is Gary Cox. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Ford, and Planner Hilton for this opportunity to speak. Since I only have 3 minutes, I've got a lot to say. You've read my letters and emails in the packet, and I just want to add this. And it's especially difficult because this has all been blown up just in the last couple of days because of the release of Mr. Wheeler's newest revised plan, which you all have to understand, it's not been vetted yet. And certainly Mr. Wheeler is going to speak to this later on after we're all done and have more time to explain how he's, come to these things. And so you got to understand going into that I'm going to challenge many of the things that he has proposed in this, just like I've challenged everything else. So I live in the parcel immediately to the north of Mr. Wheeler's proposed project. Lived here for going on to close 4 decades. Moved in here in 1984 with a sheep operation. I was and continue to be a very active person in my community. I've always been concerned about what goes on in the Yager Creek Valley that may have an impact on my family, my ranch operation, water for irrigation, and the overall quality of our rural ag lab. Back in the mid-1980s, there was a Citizens Advisory Committee formed to begin work on the Hydesville-Carlotta Community Plan. I received a special appointment to that committee from then 2nd District Supervisor Harry Pritchard, because I saw that no one on the committee represented the interests of the Yager Creek Valley, our irrigation and groundwater concerns. The final product in that plan was to protect resource lands, which is number 1 on the list. Section 2722 of the plan defines ag exclusive as prime ag land defined as a class 1 or class 2 soil, land that has a carrying capacity of 1 animal unit per acre. It is this definition I use when I call it good bottom ground. Beg pardon?
Your time is up. I have to cut you off. Next caller, please. Marcus Hill. You there, Marcus?
Hi, can you hear me?
Barely hear you. Turn up your volume.
How about
Nope.
now? Test, 1, 2, test.
It's the same. Very, very faint.
I'll call in on the app instead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next caller would be 4286. Unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Gordon Bledsoe, and I have worked with and known Jack Wheeler for several years now. He is a man of integrity, and he's certainly conscious of the neighborhood and their concerns. He does live on the property. He's worked for several years now into getting here. I first want to say that I've been voicing my support for his project and what he's doing. Jack is a man of integrity and a true professional. He follows the rules and does things by the book. The project that he is proposing and trying to get permitted is certainly in character with the farmland surrounding it in the agricultural zoned area. It's going to create jobs, which is certainly needed at a time like this. It's just a project that makes sense. This is Humboldt County. This is lots of marijuana grown here in this county, and this is what it's about. He is doing it legally, filed for permits in an ag zoned area. I think Jack will be an asset to Humboldt County and to the cannabis industry. So I'm just voicing my support of a project and what he's doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller is Jay. Unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Jesse Gennaro and I live in Hydesville, and I also have 4 cannabis permits out here, and I do live on this site with the cannabis permits. A couple of things I wanted to say is I was at that meeting in October because I wanted to hear what the community had to say, and I will say that I saw the community attack John Ford and attack the applicant, and that's about all that got accomplished at that meeting. Jack was very willing to mitigate what he could, but he didn't really get a chance to talk. He also let everybody know that he didn't invite people that were for the project because he wanted the people that had concerns to be able to voice their concerns. So I just wanted to voice my opinion. Jack's a very stand-up guy. The project is perfect where it's at. It meets all requirements of the 2.0. And I think that it would be very unfair if we do not push this project through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is Carol.
I would like to thank the Planning Commission for the opportunity to speak tonight at this hearing, and I'd also like to thank John Ford and Keenan Hilton for their hard work and due diligence on the project. My objection to this project is simple but profound. I believe a large industrial cannabis grow is misplaced and inappropriate in this rural residential Yager Creek River Valley. The proposed commercial cannabis grow is also inconsistent with the Hydesville-Carlotta community plan. This community plan not only land use, but community values and how the citizens envision their community growing in the future. My husband is on the advisory committee for this community plan, and I understand its intent very well. We've lived in our property since 1984, and it directly borders the proposed cannabis grow project on the entire east-west fence line. Our 2-story home faces the proposed greenhouses that would encompass 6,480 square feet, or the equivalent to the size of a football field. The entire project would be in our direct line of sight, forcing us to view not only the huge greenhouses, but 18 large water tanks and 2 1,000-gallon propane tanks. With our property line just 40 feet away from this proposed structures, this project would completely impact our visual surroundings, taking it from rural to industrial. I believe that the characterization that the applicant has made that this is just another farm, field corn and quinoa, it is not. Requiring an armed guard with posted signage to protect the property would indeed indicate that it is indeed something else. The need for video surveillance and extra security measures exists because of the potential for crime. Commercial growers in the rural residential areas subject their neighbors to many dangers. There would also be a marked decline of property values. No prospective buyer other than a grower would choose to live near a large commercial cannabis operation. Cannabis grows in family neighborhoods are incompatible, and compelling families to move is untenable. This project is in the middle of and surrounded by 7 homes. 2 of the neighbors closest to the grow stated that if this project goes in, they will move. Well, the fear was too much for them to simply wait and see. One family with 4 children has already sold their home and property with escrow closing last week. The family closest to the project has 3 children and is also selling. Mr. Wheeler stated at the recent community meeting that an associate of his was buying the property, which would. Okay, I am totally opposed to this because of the overarching guide to the community plan in the areas of Carlotta, Hydesville Community Plan District. In that plan, it people addressed noise control, water, air pollution control, size and number of structures, no increased traffic, parking restrictions, sign restrictions, and number of employees. If this
Your
grow
time
is
got
allowed
moved.
to proceed, it would be devastating to our family.
Thank you. We have to move on to the next caller. Next caller is 5968.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was breaking up earlier and I just wanted to be clear when I spoke. So can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I work for the applicant's family farm. It's also on a small residential road with no sidewalks. I am very slow when I drive by. I wave to the neighbors. I see them walking their dogs. I see the children. I smile. I wave. They wave back. That's one of the first things told to me when I got this job was be considerate of the neighbors, drive slow. I don't leave for lunch because they've asked that we keep the coming and going traffic to a minimum in order to be respectful of the neighbors. The applicant's family, as other people have said, they're good people. They are hard workers. They're highly ethical. They've created really good jobs for me, my friends, and one of the things I was thought when I first applied to this job and saw how clean it was, how well maintained it was that, wow, I wish there was more opportunities like this for people in my community. I am so grateful for this opportunity, and I understand the concerns and the fear of change and the sad stigma that comes with cannabis farms. And I just want to let you guys know that it's not always like that. As far as the cannabis farms go, this is as good as it gets. They're very respectful people. They employ respectful people. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. And I think anyone would be lucky to have them as a neighbor. And yeah, I say that as a member of the community. I have family who lives in Hydesville. And yeah, thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Next caller, 6670. Unmute. Unmute. Seeing nobody.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, gentlemen, commissioners. Natalie DeLapp, Humboldt County Growers Alliance. Sorry for that technical glitch. I am here to speak in support of this project. And I just want to bring a few points to the discussion. And, you know, one of the first things that I heard was that in May, the planning department had 5 letters of opposition, which this was determined was too much. And therefore the public welfare was in jeopardy. And in May, they recommended that the applicant rescind their application. That's pretty interesting. And so instead of looking at it and saying, hey, you know, let's look at different types of mitigation that can be employed, the automatic response in this early spring was rescind your project. And what we're talking about is public health, public safety, and public welfare. And as Keenan just said, the public health and the public safety have been effectively mitigated through the applicant's modifications of their project over this summer. Yet if you read the executive summary, it makes it sound like the applicant has done nothing to try to mitigate or assuage the concerns of the community. And perhaps if the community had been told by the planning department, look, your public health and safety have been addressed through this whole series of mitigations, people's welfare, AKA their attitudes and their perceptions, might start to be amended. And as also noted in the planning's presentation, there are a half a dozen cannabis operations that are already existing within the community. And I ask, has anybody's health, safety, or welfare been negatively impacted over the last 3 years? I don't think so. I think what we learn is that when we put legal operations in place with this whole huge laundry list of criteria that people have to follow, their health and safety are protected. Additionally, people are now pointing out there's going to be armed guards. Armed guards are a mitigation strategy. I will tell you that most cannabis operations around this county do not employ armed guards. They do not employ security. That is a mitigation. That is an attempt to show people that this is going to be safer. I just want to come back to, there is a very finite number of people who actually live upon Fisher Road. There might be a lot of people speaking up in opposition.
Thank you. Next caller, Jay Midart.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi, my name is Jamie Dark, and I'm calling to speak on behalf of this project. I wanted to just follow up with the 3 farmers that are referenced in this call today. They actually all do live on their property, as I do work alongside of them. So the point being is that they do they hold their property value in high regards, therefore they do take care of that. And basically, I'm the owner and founder of Dark Staffing, and my business provides staffing, HR, and payroll solutions to the cannabis industry. And so I was hopeful in calling today to extinguish any opposition due to the public safety concerns, specifically regarding employees and the increased crime, and also the traffic in the areas of the proposed operations. So legalization obviously limits crime opportunity because it's regulated, and there are processes in place to limit crime activity. And then with that being said, employees are actually vetted. Background checks are taking place, and therefore there's a lot of regulated traffic coming in and out. The 2 employees that actually called and said that they worked with the applicant currently, I have the pleasure of working with the applicant and his family, and they are very respectful people, employers, community members. They provide livable wage jobs. They operate in a safe and respectful manner. And with that being said, they do have happy employees. I have employed 1,300 people since 2017, and the vast majority of those employees have worked within the cannabis space in Humboldt County. With that being said, they support local businesses, which actually support families and the community with the job creation. So I think that the question about public health and safety is, valid in regards to, overall, but I really think that the community welfare will be adversely affected if the project is not approved. It was quoted in one of the letters, the opposition letters, that they felt that the community welfare would be adversely affected if it was approved. But I do disagree with that we're going to lose jobs. Our community needs those jobs. They pay livable wages.
30 seconds.
And I would just like to see an opportunity for this project to be be considered and approved, just based on the facts that the job creation would be fabulous for the area. And these are upstanding people that would provide a safe and respectful working environment for our community. Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you. Next caller, public 9760. You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
I am a legal cannabis farmer in a community planning area, and I was permitted under Ordinance 1.0.
And as you know, there was 153 farms, I believe, that were affected by the change to the 2.0 regulations. And we were all kind of sitting on edge, wondering what our future would be when this was being reconsidered. And I sat through every single meeting that was held in, where you're sitting right now. And I listened to all the concerns, and I watched this drag out in an agonizing process for myself for what seemed like almost a year. And what I kept hearing over and over again was that they kept saying that they realized that they made some errors in Ordinance 2.1 in allowing grows to go into both agricultural and residential areas. And we are one of those people. We're on agricultural residential land with both zonings. And I do understand these people's concerns after the fact. And I know that's water under the bridge, but I guess my point is there's a lot of growers that came to the microphone and they voiced their concerns about how they don't trust the process and they just don't trust the planning department because we're constantly given a moving target. We're given a list of things that say you need to meet all these qualifications. And then when we do, the rules changed. And that's really scary when my family, we made a $1 million investment in this county. And to have the rug pulled out from under us or have the rules changed all the time is really scary. And what I heard, and I'm sure it's even on Granicus, it was addressed by Supervisor Fennell. She talked about this health, safety, and welfare. And I heard John Ford also speak and say the reason that we are spending this amount of time, the reason that we're dissecting every piece of this ordinance is because we don't ever want to have an ordinance 3.0. We want this to be the final document. And these are the rules that will be set forth. And if the applicant meets these rules, meets all these obligations, then the burden of proof will be on the opposition to prove that their health and their safety is in jeopardy. And Estelle Fennell specifically spoke to this, and she said, and more than one person, either on the commission or on the supervisor board, said this isn't, the word they used, I think they said this isn't, they're basically saying this isn't just a public vote. It won't be a NIMBY thing. They ensured that it would not be a NIMBY thing. And what we're seeing now is totally NIMBY. These people are coming on, they're making very, very inflammatory comments. And I really sincerely hope that you guys will give this a close look. Look at Fisher Road. It is a 2-lane class 4, category 4 road. If people's children are out playing in a category 4 road, I don't know what to say to that. There's really only 4 or 5 houses that are even on Fisher Road. And then there's probably a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile where there's no houses.
Is it just me, or did we lose her?
Yeah, we did. My computer just glitched. But her time was up anyhow, so it worked out, I guess. Next caller is Marcus Hill, please.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Marcos Hill, and I'm a software developer and freelance online marketer by trade. I live at the end of Hill Lane and Cooper Drive, and am the 6th generation descendant of the hills that helped settle and found Hydesville. I came today to voice my support for the approval of the Lost Boys application for a commercial cannabis operation. I know the parcels very well in the area, and I'm personally of the opinion that a majority of the concerns raised by neighbors are not valid due to the topology and the forestry within the area. Most people who have raised concerns have a large redwood-filled steep slope blocking access and view from the parcel to their parcel. So there's that. It is my personal opinion that the remaining concerns of the opposition stem from a misperception of cannabis as a whole and the impact an operation being allowed within their neighborhood might have. As elected community leaders, I believe that it is up to all of you to allow for the advancement of the community by helping remove the negative image that is associated with cannabis and replace it with one that includes the benefits that an industry could bring to the whole of a community rather than catering to the few who may be opposed. I do not believe the community welfare will be adversely affected by this project, but rather it would be improved, and there would be more local jobs within the community, which would further assist in lowering the unemployment rate that Humboldt has been successfully lowering recently, most likely due to cannabis, as we heard earlier. In addition, the tax revenue would allow for other community improvements, which would, again, benefit the community welfare as a whole. That is all I have to say, and I thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you, Mike. 7454 is the next caller. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, Ken Sawatsky, non-Esquire. I'm not an attorney. I support staff recommendation on this topic for many reasons. Being in construction and building, I would not be interested in buying these particular people as they go out and move out of here if they're forced out by this because of devaluation of their property. And that is my testimony as someone who does development. I don't see that as being a benefit. Just basically, I think you've heard from the public. I'm not going to take any more of your time other than just say I recommend because of all the reasons you heard. And I did want to make one comment. Somebody was saying before a little bit about Estelle Fennell. Well, she's soon to be not our supervisor anymore. And maybe some of these policies are the reason why. So I look forward to you making a correct decision, in my opinion, which would be to follow staff's recommendation. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Yeah. 7978, please. Unmute. You there, 7978?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Kaylin Kemp, and I'm a grandchild of Gary Sarvinsky and future heir to the property. I grew up spending Sundays and every holiday with my grandparents, playing in the yard and riding my horse on the property at Fisher Road. With the addition of a commercial cannabis farm in the area, I would not have been safe to enjoy these beautiful childhood memories with my cousins. With the exception of one parcel owner, the residents of this area participate in agriculture as a hobby and have other full-time jobs. They did not move here to make enormous profit, but to build homes for their families. I would like to address a comment made in the October meeting that the residents would not be opposed to a large commercial dairy farm coming to the area. If the commenter knew anything about dairies, he would know this comparison is baseless. I have a degree in dairy science and have worked for over 70 dairies in the Central Valley. The size of dairy required to make any sort of traffic impact in the area is beyond any dairy capability in Humboldt County. Ferndale dairies employ less than 5 people, most of whom are part of the family. Additionally, dairy farms do not attract any sort of violent crime in the way that marijuana does. Guards on the applicant's parcel do not keep my grandparents' house down the road safe from violent intruders who come to the wrong place. This is not the future I envision for my grandparents, parents, and future heirs to this property I grew up on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is Public 3053. You there, 3053? Unmute yourself. Go ahead. $30.53, are you still there? Well, give him a second. That was the last.
Can you hear me?
And yes.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Not speaking for or against this project, but just wanted to bring a couple things to light. There was a commenter earlier that said they had a family spend over $1 million and then the rules were changed. I'm unaware of any pre-existing cultivator that spent that kind of money. A lot of times these are for new operations where people are overspending for a bigger project than they're approved for later on. I did read the staff report, and I'd like to note that Supervisor Phil, well, I mean, she won't be our supervisor next month, but she was comfortable meeting with 30 people in the public. Yeah, it was outside, but won't meet in the chambers with members of the public. So I thought that was very, very interesting. And some things, there's some neighborhood concerns here. I don't live in the neighborhood, so it's hard for me to speak one way or the other. But, you know, sometimes the original ordinance was trying to drive people out of the hills, and then it kind of got into larger cultivation areas in areas that weren't cultivating before or out in the open. And I came from a different culture of, you know, out of sight, out of mind. You kind of get along with your neighbors and don't have it in front of your face. So those are some things to think about as projects move forward. And some of these big projects like this are taking up from staff time where there's other pre-existing projects, very, very small, under 10,000 square feet, that maybe staff could work on. So it's a tough decision ahead of you. I mean, you have a lot of community opposition. You know, this is a new project, lots of things to weigh and consider, but maybe there's mitigations, and also it'd be nice if all the supplemental information was available to the public to view, so that way we could see what you're seeing, because we aren't allowed to meet in person. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, so I'm seeing no more hands up for the public. I would now like to ask the applicant, Jack Wheeler, to address the commission and answer some of those questions. I'd ask him to keep it brief, because if I give you more than 3 minutes, the other side's going to say that I was unfair. So try to keep it as close as you can.
Understood. Hello, everyone. This is Jack Wheeler. I'm the property owner and applicant for the project. Thank you to the commission for allowing the time to speak today and for taking a careful look at my project. And thank you to everyone who came out to speak. I guess with 3 minutes, I think the most important thing I can do here is clear the air. There's been this really horrible image painted of me by a man who I won't name here in order to garner opposition to this project. And some background, you guys. I bought this property. I live here with my fiance. I started in Fortuna on my family farm. I've been a full-time resident of Humboldt County for 5 years. I've lived at the property in question full-time every day, year-round, for the past 2.5 years with my fiance. I share the same concerns that I heard at the community meeting. I heard what you said. I read your letters, and I'm making every attempt I can to try and make this right, to try and make this fit. I want the same things as what you outlined in your letter. This isn't some venture capital outside company that just can be written off. If I lose today, this is my home. This is everything I have. This is my farm. This is a future for my family. That's my motivation here. I'm beholden to no one. I'm the owner of both these California LLCs and this property simply because I had to take a mortgage on my home. There's nothing nefarious about that. I think there's plenty of people in this room who have taken loans on their homes to purchase a home. I really hope that the community will get a chance to take a close look at my response and the mitigation measures within. I've been working day in and day out since that meeting to try and pull this together, to try and address each and every one of your concerns and fears and anxiety. And I'm looking at it through this lens. I want to live here full time. We want to raise our family here. We want to get married, have kids, build something successful, have a legacy that I can leave to them, and somehow get past this anti-cannabis sentiment that just exists in these areas. And if we're to do that, it's not something that's going to happen at a round table or with mitigation measures. That requires good legal operators to come forward and set an example to change the perception. And that's something that happens over time, because those perceptions were created over time by bad actors, and some due to just the overall criminalization of cannabis. There was a lot of bad things that happened as a result of that. And I know there's people that spoke today that have been impacted at that in some point in their life. And I understand, I understand it. I don't fault you for taking that position. I would fault no one for wanting to protect their own interest. But I want you to understand that the things that matter to you also matter to me. The picture that's been painted is not who I am. And I would hope that you just give me a chance. I want to be accepted here. I'll do what I need to do to make this work for the people around me. But to say that we would be okay with anything but cannabis, it closes the door instantly to any reasonable discussion. But I'm open. I'd like to talk to you. There's this invisible wall that's been built between us by the leader of the opposition. I won't use his name, but it doesn't need to be there. I have no hard feelings or ill will towards anyone on this call today, no matter what you said. I just want a chance from you. I want you to give me a chance to show that I can do this right, that I can be a good neighbor, a good steward of the land, and bring a benefit to this community.
You're gonna have to wrap it up.
Understood. I think that's about it. To my neighbors, I hope you get a chance to read through the mitigation plans and consider how it may or may not address your concerns. And please come directly to me. I've been reaching out to the man who stepped up as the go-between and liaison for weeks in an attempt to have a conversation to give you an early peek at my mitigation plans. And I'm being totally stonewalled. And we need to go around that. Please come to me directly. You know where my home is. I'm here all the time. You're always welcome here. I want to have a discussion, and we don't have to agree on moral and philosophical elements. We can disagree on cannabis's place in this county or its legitimacy and get along and be respectful of each other and be courteous to each other, be good neighbors and be considerate. I hope my actions reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. With that, I am going to close the public portion of this and bring it back to the commission. And I see one hand up already. Melanie, I see you're the first one with a hand up, so go ahead. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So it's a tough one, right? I think we all realize that. In the past, this commission has usually gone along with staff recommendations, and we've both been happy going along with what the state has kind of passed down to us in terms of what the CEQA guidelines and regulations are. And of course, you know, all of our other plans and guidelines. And, you know, there are some similarities with some of the past projects. And so I do still have some hesitancy in regards to the level of public comment for this project relative to some of the older ones. However, I do think that this is different. I agree with the director that this is more, I don't know if I want to say unique, but it's definitely a little different in that we do have a community plan and a majority, it seems, of a community that does not want to have this as part of their land use planning. It's at the beginning. So there hasn't been a precedent, for example. We have an Assembly Bill 1515, I believe, Chapter 269. I have to verify that. I believe it's Assembly Bill 1515, passed in September of last year, that changes a whole lot of things, but gives a lot of emphasis to local community plans. So basically a way to say, hey, you know, we do want to give local governance a little bit more power in this state. And while the Assembly Bill doesn't explicitly address this case, of course, for me, I feel that the combination of the recent Assembly Bill giving more emphasis to community plans, especially at the beginning, which in a sense this is, and the staff recommendations, that I am personally prepared to vote to deny this project. So in support of the staff recommendations. unless we receive some sort of new information. That's it.
Thank you, Melanie. I see Ronnie has her hand up. So go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to make a motion in light of all of the public comment, and I also just want to say I empathize with the applicant, but you know, the community that have been there for generations have, you know, been very clear that this is not something that they want in their community plan area. So taking all of that into consideration, I'd like to move to find the project exempt from environmental rural guidelines section 15270, making the finding that the applicant has failed to demonstrate. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, that the impacts of the proposed project on the existing uses would not have a significant adverse impact on the public health, safety, and welfare, and that therefore the required findings for approval cannot be made, and adopt the resolution denying the proposed Lost Boys Farms LLC project.
Thank you, Ronnie. So we have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion? And I see there's some hands up for this, so we can have some discussion too, but do we have a second to go with that motion?
I'll second it.
So Peggy is a second. Any discussion? I see Mike has his hand up and Noah. So why don't you go ahead, Mike?
Well, I believe that we've heard and seen quite a bit of new stuff, new information that possibly the neighbors have not been consulted with. And it's all come about in this last part. And I've heard from the applicant there that, you know, he's tried reaching out. I think that we're rushing to judgment here a little too early to deny the project. I think we should continue the project, the application, to a further time so that we can delve into this a little bit deeper. I believe with some of the mitigations that have been done, I think some of the neighbors could be won over. I'd like to see a little bit more about it. So that's my opinion.
Hey, Noah, go ahead. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I basically just agree with what Commissioner Newman just said. There's a lot of new stuff here. You know, we're not even being asked to vote yes to approve it because it doesn't feel to me like a complete project yet. It doesn't feel to me like a project that has even had the opportunity to fully run its course. And I think a continuance, which was requested by the applicant and or his attorney or agent, would be the logical next step. So, I mean, I know a motion was put forward already before we had a chance to get all our thoughts out, so we can address that in a moment. But I really do feel like, you know, the fact that we didn't even get the 17-page document detailing the mitigations and the 3-page document from the applicant until this morning. And I'm not clear if anyone other than the commission and the planning staff has seen it yet. For me, is just kind of case in point. I'm not certain if all of the other development of this application behind the scenes that would need to be able to present a complete application has occurred, or if staff may have kind of cut it short when they came to the opinion that they weren't going to be able to support this project. But I mean, I just come back to what I said before. This seems like a project that has done an awful lot to try to meet all that was asked of it by the staff. I mean, their job is to deal with planning staff. Their job is not actually to make individual changes in response to the neighbors, but I get the sense that they have attempted to hear and learn from the neighbors and then work with staff on what would address those. So I'm still perplexed by the questions that I asked at the beginning and by Keenan's response, Mr. Hilton's response. But let's just say that I'm supporting the idea that we could have a continuance and have a chance for all the neighbors and the public to digest the mitigations that have been put in place. Thank you.
Camilla, Ronnie, you got your hand back up, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, just address what Noah and Mike said is that, our own staff and even our own directors said that didn't change their feelings that the new information changed anything regarding the project, and they still recommended denial.
I have a question for the director. It's been brought up a couple times now that the applicant asked for a continuance. Is that something that happened, or is that just you would say?
No, the applicant did ask for a continuance, and it was rather late. It was after the staff report had already been put out, and like I said, we have been very clear. And I want to go back to something that a member of the public said, is that in May, there were already 5 letters. It should raise a question as to why were there letters in May, long before this is ever going to make it to a public hearing. It's because one of the things the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors did in the CCLUO is require that cannabis cultivations in this location or this type of location that the neighborhood be given early notice so that they could have early involvement, so that they could state their objections early and those could be taken into account early. And that is what has happened here. And so that really is coming out of the policy direction of the CCLUO. I mean, I don't like recommending denial of anything, but in a situation where the policy direction is to look at the community plan area as being a unique area that requires consideration of what the neighbors think, that is what the ordinance calls for. That's what we're doing here.
Thank you, Director. That cleared that up for me. So any other comments, questions from the commission? Mike, I see your hand up again. Mike?
Yes, I'm just trying to unmute there. Thank you. And that's part of the reason why I think a little bit of time is necessary here to let the neighbors see more of what the mitigation measures by the applicant has been proposed here. I don't believe that they've been fully informed about what has all gone on. I would be fully in favor of it if there's been all of the information by the applicant put out there with plenty of time for more input with the neighbors. And if they're still in opposition to it, I would be fully in favor because of the community plan region that it is in and what we have set up in our county, that neighborhoods do have an account and need to have that early warning system to a certain degree and have a little bit more input when they're in a community planning area. So thanks.
Brian has his hand up. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that I feel like if we find ourselves saying this project meets all of the requirements, but we should vote no on it, then that means we have a problem with our set of rules. And when we put that out there and members of the community rely on that to make substantial investment, both in time, effort, and in money, then it is inappropriate for us to simply say, you met all the rules, but now they're actually different rules. And I remember discussing the community plan areas and understand that not allowing public input on a lot of these permits caused a lot of problems. But I feel that what we wanted to have was input so that the project could conform to specific issues in the community, such as traffic. We need to look at making reduced vehicle trips, or they don't like the idea of having odor, so we're going to put it indoors and have odor filtration. I did not ever hear a discussion of allowing the neighbors to have veto power simply because they don't like the concept of cannabis. So I don't think that the community has had the opportunity to read all of the new material that's been dropped on us today, and I support the concept of a continuance.
Seeing no more hands, I'm going to make one comment, and then I'm going to call for the question on the motion that's on the floor. I was around on the commission when we did the first ordinance, and the talk about the community plans was long. We had a lot of discussion, a lot about the out by Blue Lake area. I can remember talking about Willow Creek being its own area. I think that if what we're hearing is that they have this community plan and they said that they didn't want this out there, I have a hard time not respecting it. I also see the other side of the sword, and that is that he's done all the things that you're supposed to do, but maybe he did everything but look at if it met the community plan before he went forward with this. This is a tough one. This is maybe one of the hardest ones that's come before us. I'm not exactly sure what the right answer is, to be honest. But we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. So I am going to call for the vote and code ask Laura to do that. So if just so we're clear, if we vote yes, we're going with staff.
A yes vote on the motion would deny the project.
Yeah, correct.
Alan Bongio.
Yes.
Ronnie Pellegrini.
Yes.
Noah Levy.
No.
Mike Newman.
No.
Peggy O'Neill.
Yes.
Brian Mitchell.
No.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
So it's a 4-3 vote with the yeses carrying. Thank you, everybody. That was a tough one. Good discussion. I feel for the applicant, but that's the way it goes. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have the next issue. Amendments to the Humboldt Bay plan. Do you think?
Given the fact that it is 9:30, I would ask that the amendments to the Humboldt Bay Area Plan be continued to the meeting of December 17th, and the draft amendments to the Cannabis Dispensaries Ordinance be continued to December 17th.
Do I have a motion to continue those two items, the amendments to the Humboldt Bay Area Plan, and coastal zoning regulations?
Also, yes.
We have a motion. Who is the second?
I'll second it.
Oh, okay. So Mike was the motion and Peggy was the second. Roll call vote, please.
Alan Bongio.
Yes.
Ronnie Pellegrini.
Yes.
Noah Levy.
Yes.
Mike Newman.
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill.
Yes.
Brian Mitchell.
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous. Anything else we want to discuss before we adjourn?
You've got a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see that. Go ahead, Melanie. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you. It was from before, but my question was for the director. It was, do we have any other applicants in the queue that are in this area? And if so, have they been made aware of this community plan? And what are the plans to address this?
I don't know that we've got any other 2.0 applications in the queue. We obviously, as you saw on the map, have 1.0 applications in the queue. The 1.0 applications that were zoning clearance certificates have all been, well, actually by this point, all applicants have been notified that they need to be taking one of several alternative approaches. ZCCs have a few options, either enclose, maintain setbacks, or process a CUP. Others need to process a CUP.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I see Noah has his hand up also. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, it's something that I put out in an email pretty late this afternoon, and we don't have time to get into it in any substance, but I thought I would just plant a flag so that maybe at the next meeting, I would love to get an update on the discussion of an ad hoc committee involving a couple of us commissioners and a number of local developers and the Coalition for Public Transportation Priorities to discuss streamlining the permitting process for new development and traffic solutions. We had a great discussion about it a few meetings ago. I just wanted to know if that's moving forward.
Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, we will bring a report back to you at the next meeting. We have not set the subsequent meetings up yet. I apologize for that.
No worries, but thanks. That'd be great to hear a little bit more next meeting. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything, Director?
I have nothing else.
Well, it was a fun night. With that, everybody have a good one, and we will adjourn the meeting of December 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.